Hello and welcome back to my channel. As promised, here's a video on child free in Africa and whether I think it will grow depending on the current economic and political situation in Africa. So by now I'm sure you've seen a lot of videos on the internet on about child free content. Most of these videos mainly come from the West, but you'd be surprised to find that the child-free movement is also picking up in Africa. Yes, you heard it right. There are some African women who are choosing to not have children for various reasons, just like people in the West are. No, many people don't have children nowadays, maybe because of the economy, because of their health, because of their maybe they have a mental condition, but also because some people feel that maybe there aren't enough resources on earth, or the environment is falling apart and there's nothing for their children to hope for in the future. But as you know, most social and economic problems hit black women the hardest, so it would make sense for black women to be child free or to lead the child free movement. But unfortunately this is not the case, because in the social sciences we know that when it comes to dealing with human beings and cultures and social systems, things are not in black and white as they would be in STEM fields. So there are many reasons why you may see that black women's fertility rates are not collapsing as fast as those of white women or other races of women. So I'm sure by now you've also heard of the whole DINK thing, dual income no kids. This is very popular with the modern professional who has a partner but no children. Individuals usually enjoy a higher standard of living because, as you know, many parents across the globe are struggling, as you know, the economy is not doing that well anywhere, and it's no surprise that this population is growing and will continue to grow. But what about Africans? Well, the answer lies in looking at social media and listening to the experts, doing both actually. You find that when you view people's posts on social media in certain circles, there are African women speaking out on their child-free status and saying that it does not bother them, and that the only reason they feel pressured is because of society. That if they had no external pressure, there's not even something that would cross their mind. Many of them who are interviewed or who post about it on social media will say that it's because of they just don't feel the need, economic pressure, or just cultural problems, so they don't think it's safe to have a child in many of these environments. First example is, I think her name is Grace. She's on TikTok. She goes by the Child Free African, that's her TikTok name. And I also found this interview with someone called Nina Steele by a blog called African Feminism, and they both say the same thing. They just did not feel the need to be mothers despite both of them being healthy. And when you look at the situation in Africa, the poverty, the violence these children go through, is this a life worth living? And knowing that you cannot control the economy has to be a wake-up call and make more African women consider being child-free. So that's what social media is saying. Some African women are definitely open to the option of being child-free. At other times, they also address the fact that black men simply cannot create a functional society or raise a child. But I think that for many black women with a social media presence where their face is out there, they tend not to touch on that point so much, and I understand why. Because I genuinely believe that if black women would dedicate themselves to being child-free, it would solve all the problems, because there would be no future black men to create these problems. So I think that's what black women should do, just focus on being child-free, and the problems in the black community will eventually solve themselves. But anyway, on to my next point about the experts. Now, onto what the experts are saying. I found an article from from Marketer.net, a website that just collects. I don't know what specifically their niche is, but they have a very interesting article on the demographic trajectory of various populations for the next few years. So this article writes about demographic trajectory, and it talks about how in the Lancet's latest population stats on Sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa is the world's only region with above replacement total fertility rate, currently estimated from 4.3 to 4.6. They've gone from 8% of global births in 1950 to 30% or in 2021, headed to 54% by the century's end. While the region's TFR, in this case meaning total fertility rate, is falling fast, any sub-Saharan population contraction is at least a century out. However, according to macro trends, Africa's TFR 4.1 has declined an average of 1.3% annually over the last 3 years. Should this trend persist, Africa will eventually plunge into below replacement territory. So this is the same thing that's happening in Europe and places like Japan and South Korea. They are facing a fertility crisis. People are not having enough children, and very soon the system will be overwhelmed by old people who need pension and care in their old age. Now, Africa still has a high population of young people, but how long will this persist with all the violence and poverty and disease and just all the dysfunction that occurs there? I believe that if the current trend of black femicide continues, the population in Africa will keep declining. Black men are soon going to be found out for the frauds they are, and they might not be absorbed into other communities, as these other cultures are leaning more towards nationalism, and black men will have no place there because they are tied in with a lot of leftist politics at this point. It's safe to say that, for most African women, they are pressured and they still live in poverty, so they may not have the ability to make these types of decisions because, of the Maslow's hierarchy and all that. They are still not at that level where they seek self-actualization. They are still beheld to the whims of their community, which demands children. They are still held down by these oppressive cultures, but I believe as the money spreads out and the economy grows a little bit stronger, black women will have more leeway to becoming child free. I genuinely think this will happen. I also think that on the other end, while Africa has such a high population compared to the rest of the world, there is still an extremely high mortality rate thanks to things like black femicide, disease, lack of access to healthcare, and all that, everything that comes with Blackistan. I've also noticed that that in places like the US, the Hispanic population is growing while the black population is stagnant, and this is also a sign that things like black femicide are happening in real life, and they will continue to get worse as groups like the Red Pill completely take over the social aspect of our society. So for that reason, I think there are about to be many changes that black men did not foresee in the black community, and all of these changes will hit them hard. They will leave them with no one to run to, and the truth will be revealed at the end of the day. Even though there are many leftists and liberals right now who protect black men and the degeneracy in the black community, something will be done and they will be revealed and exposed, and black men will have nowhere to run. The population will greatly decline, and I think that is for the better. However, for other groups, I hope that they have not absorbed too much of black culture, because I've been noticing it. A lot of black traits and tendencies have been making way into these cultures, and it is going to be a problem in future. But I believe that if other generations look at the mistakes that other people have made, like black women, they can course correct and avoid these cultures seeping into their own. And also maybe black women can leave the black community behind once and for all. And for those left behind, I genuinely do not think black men will spare them. And with that, I'd like to bid you good night. Thank you so much for watching. I'll do another video maybe tomorrow on Friday or next Thursday as usual. Have a good day.